Should lay Lutherans have podcasts or just leave it to the trained pastors? You imagine having to listen to sports talk radio done by Lutheran pastors? You know what I'm saying? I'm going to read the question as though I think I know what you mean. You're not really talking about all podcasts. You're talking about theological podcasts or podcasts in which the teaching office might be exercised accidentally by a Christian, right? Oh, watch out. So, and I'm all for the distinction of the teaching office, and I don't think we even really understand it or make use of it as much as we might boast of it. But that being said, right, the reason for the question is the fear that if Christians got together and talked about Jesus and it was recorded and they made a mistake and then someone heard it, that would be false teaching, right? And like, there's a good reason that we should be afraid of that, but I don't think that that fear is a reason to not do the things, right? That's like saying, like, there's a danger I'm going to get hit on the road today driving to work, so I'm not going to. No, you're going to drive carefully is what you're going to do. Right? You're going to drive carefully and with understanding. Now, this is kind of the trick, though. So what is the end of the podcast? Is it to be a didache? Is it to be an extension of the teaching office for the sake of the church as predicant, as preacher, herald, proclaimer, forgiver of sins? Or is it just, a teacher? History, which is cool stuff, and theology needs Greek. What the Bible says, narrative, exegetics, systematics. I mean, there are atheists who teach this stuff and probably do it kind of well, as long as you know it. So that's the question, right? How do you distinguish between teaching and preaching? And that's one that I'll just have to say that we don't have a good history of that one, kiddos. The answer is you certainly can. Why are you going to? It seems to me more interesting to not try to do a podcast about something that's not your thing. But see, if theology is your thing, well, then that would be cool. Do a podcast about it. At what point does theology being your thing convert from, you didn't see where I'm going here? Convert from being a layman to being one who needs to preach. And I'm going to say that we haven't made that the easiest path. And for good reason, but the hurdles we put in front of it now may or may not be actually achieving the ends we set them for. So what I want you to hear is you should not discourage yourself from pursuing the office of the ministry because you believe that means you have to leave where you live right now and never go back and quit your job and all that. What you should do is just start talking to your pastor about, as the board of elders, how you could possibly follow the SMP program through the seminaries and then serve as an aid to him there where you are and put your hunger for the words into a thing which is in fact authorized to proclaim them. And at that point, go do your podcast about just theology. But what I want to say, though, is it's not like you shouldn't do podcasts about God or truth or the world or life and how you live that and how these things intersect. If you're a Christian doing a podcast about art, I sure hope you're talking about what you believe worldview-wise with regard to your art. Even if you aren't trying to turn all of them into sales pitches for Jesus, you should at least be talking about redemption, holiness and cleanliness and all the light versus darkness and the epic battle of good against evil and all that kind of stuff, right? So, to say that you couldn't podcast, to answer this question with like a no, you leave it to the pastors, is just so nonsensical. It's as good as taking the creed out of your mouth, which I think I've heard people make the argument in such a way that they effectively said that, right? That all you get to do is listen. As a layman, I was like, okay, whatever. So, yeah, Chris, I hope that's a good enough answer for you. I'd say it depends, and it depends why and what and where to and what for, and you could. But then maybe you shouldn't, and then maybe you should, and then actually not be a layman anymore, too. And it all depends. Talk to your pastor.